Dom, I'm dying to know what people are thinking after listening to an expert, after listening to Josh Carpenter from the Sports Business Journal talking about television ratings. I don't even quite know how to summarize what I heard. I'd be curious what your impressions were, kind of sitting on the sidelines listening to what he had to say.
First of all, I love having experts on this program, just in general. That's why I love the fact that we spend so much time talking to professional golfers, both men and women, old and young. There's nothing that is the equivalent of that perspective. And Josh's perspective is unique and knowledgeable, and there's a tremendous amount of weight and experience behind what he has to say. I thought my takeaway from him talking, if I was going to make it a sentence, it's hard for me to make anything one sentence.
That's true.
If I was going to make it one sentence, I would say some people seem to think that golf's going to be okay, but Josh is not convinced. And that's interesting considering his background, that he's not convinced things are moving in the right direction. That's interesting. The question
well,
of the
he
day,
kept coming back to your point. He kept coming back to basically what I was trying to figure out is, because you could tell any story you want with numbers, he's coming back to going, yeah, my words, not his. The gold standard is still television ratings, though. And television ratings are down, bottom line.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying. That's interesting. I would say the overall view is a negative one. Maybe it's only 60-40, but it's a negative one. So the question is, for all of you, is golf in trouble on TV? And 71%, perhaps influenced by Josh, are saying, yeah, it's in trouble. We got issues. There are comments coming in.
Yes, what are they?
I will read a few of them.
Okay.
I think there's a lot to discuss here, and we don't have a ton of time. We can talk about this, especially as the season comes to an end and we enter into the holiday season. It gives us the opportunity to talk a little bit more about this kind of stuff, ad nauseum over a period of hours and shows. That being said, Cal writes, America is not the center of the universe. There are many more golfers and golf fans and followers outside of America than what is in America. Unlike the NFL, golf is not an American sport. It is a world sport. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. That's an interesting comment. But United States golf television ratings are still the driving force, are they not?
Well, to his point, when the United States, the market for golf in the United States is the largest golf market in the world. Right? The next two surprise people because they're both in Asia, right? In Japan and South Korea. But the largest golf market in the world is the USA. So generally, any business wants to, if they can, dominate or at least do well in the primary market for that product or service of which they're selling. But when you take a look at golf from a global basis, call it golf fracking if you want to, where you pull together the bits and pieces from all of the rest of the world, it's a number that's larger than inside the United States. So there is truth to what he's saying there as well. It's just broken up in all these little different pieces by region or by country. So there's merits on both sides of a discussion where, for example, someone yesterday in your comments was talking about, they were talking about Liv's growth objectives and saying, no, they're setting up this global tour and they're trying to take advantage of the popularity of golf on a global basis. Smart play. If you're going to go up against the primary product being the PGA Tour in the United States at its highest competitive levels, then where do you go to build your product? Take it outside of their primary marketplace. Don't go out completely. Leave a little taste of it, but go out and try to dominate everywhere that they are not. So I think it's a smart business plan from that perspective. But to the point of, I haven't checked this in a while, but the last time I checked it, golf as a global sport, is bigger than the NFL, which is going to shock a lot of people to hear that. that golf is one of the top 10 sports in the entire globe once you take it outside of the U.S. centric. So it depends on how you're measuring it, but still, when you get right down to it, this comes down to kind of the ratings that Josh was talking about. Measuring it against the standard that is the United States, it is the largest golf market in the world, and as a result, that's a very, very formidable business platform.
I mean, I can keep reading stuff if you want me to, Matt. I mean,
I'd like to know
I
a
guess
couple.
I'll read
I'd like
one
to know
more.
what people are saying.
So John writes, what Matt's talking about is what Liv is trying to tackle. Bryson doing his break 50 and all the Liv teams having their own Instagram accounts so people can follow them. These things are great for the game. Excuse me. And Cal writes, YouTube and Liv are attracting the younger viewers and followers, not the boring PGA. My only comment to that is, maybe you disagree, Matt, is that all the numbers everybody is talking about on YouTube, on Liv, and on the PGA Tour are not as high as everybody thinks. No. They're just not. Like we said, Bryson DeChambeau has 1.5 million YouTube followers. Every video he has doesn't have 1.5 million views. And even if they did, we just talked about the average regular PGA Tour event for 40 minutes being basically 2.5 million people, which is 1 million people more than that. And, you know, if you go and look at his latest video, which I just did, it's got like 700,000 or 800,000 views. Not that that's nothing,
yeah.
But we can't say that all of a sudden they're breaking ground and it's totally different. And it's not. It's still 1/3 or 1/4 of what the PGA Tour is doing. And nobody wants to talk about it because everyone says that Liv is this new groundbreaking thing that everybody wanted. That's what was missing. Well, their ratings are awful. Their television ratings in the United States are awful. So if that was true, wouldn't people be flocking to that? I mean, their last event, I think, had 89,000 people watching it in the United States. So I'm not saying these things are necessarily bad. I'm just saying that everybody's numbers are like, everybody. All the groups. But it's nice, right? It's nice to have some young people watching. That's good. It's not bad. But they're not getting 10 million people to do anything.
Well, again, he talked about he called it a coveted demographic of 18 to 34 because when you have 18 to 34, you start to get on the tail end of that demographic. You start to get to disposable income that might be able to buy your product, but you're also what they're trying to do is grab an audience that will grow into the point where they can have brand loyalty and pay for these certain things. When you talk about a demographic breakdown, all the golf groups, if you look at the two primary tours in the United States, being the PGA Tour and Liv, they have that demographic. It's just a smaller percentage than what they want. And Liv has a higher percentage of that demographic as compared to the entirety of their audience, measuring it against a U.S. television audience as a base. Again, you could do it on a global basis and look at all other types of measures. That's the nature of these numbers. But today, because you're trying to do a comparative base, they're looking at it based upon U.S. numbers. And Liv's U.S. viewing numbers are not good. The PGA Tours are down, as we just heard, kind of creeping towards 20%. That's also not good for them, even though their gross numbers are averaging, 2.5 million or whatever you just said. So from that standpoint, the consumption of golf on television would be a concern to me that it is down by that higher percentage. I don't care what business you're in. If someone says year over year you're doing 15 to 20% less volume than what you did the year before, anybody that knows anything about business would say, yeah, that's not the best scenario. I've always said the same thing about this. The best restaurant in town is not going to survive simply because they're the best restaurant in town. They have the best food. The ones that make it are the ones that have the finances, the backing behind them in order to make it through the developmental stages. That's when you're in the real valleys. When you see businesses go out and you go, geez, what happened? I love that place. It had a nice crowd. The food was wonderful. I loved the owners. The service was great. They couldn't make it through the early times of paying rent and paying payroll and paying insurance and paying for the food elements that you need in order to make these wonderful dishes, etc. Well, it's no different for any other business, but when they talk about live, what a lot of people forget, if someone's ardently against live, right, and say, like Josh used the phrase of people saying, well, they're going to fold. How? Because the difference is they're that restaurant in town that has the money to make it through the low times. So regardless of where Liv's ratings are right now, I think you have to take a long view on where golf is going. And again, I say this to reiterate. When you take a long view, now your long view is going to push right into the negotiation for and into the new television rights deals. So these numbers do have an impact. You could bring in other things and go, well, we've got streaming, we've got, all this consumption coming from different areas, which is also generally a younger demographic, mind you. But for the big dollars, are you paying for the streaming in the digital, or are you paying for primary television? Today, right now, here, it's still being paid for by primary television, because even when you look at the so-called streaming, call it Amazon or whoever it is, the way that, or what's YouTube TV, because someone was talking about YouTube, right? The way that it's set up right now is that the way you link to it, whether you have Fire TV or whatever you do, once you get on there, it's a traditional television experience, right? So it's something different. Josh had an interesting perspective when we were talking about the influencers in the game of golf. It's because the game of golf gives you this unique ability that you can compete on, play on, produce content on the same stages that the game of golf could be played at its highest tiers. What other sport allows you the opportunity to do that? And that's all true. That's all true. But I still don't think that whole genre would exist in the game of golf unless they were providing some measure of content that people found to be very entertaining. It's not just about the kids. I get it that for a lot of them, they are 35 and under. I get it. But the success that they're having shows that something is missing at the game's top tier. Yes, I think it is because sand is being thrown from one corner of the sandbox to the other. I get that. And I get that people are tired of that. But I think part of it is also that for so long, golf has tried to control the message. Golf has tried to control the image. Golf has tried to control whatever they can control. And the idea of it was how you perceive the game, how you perceive its participants, how you perceive its ecosystem is based upon the message that we, the people in power, want to send to you. So you take what we give you, and that's it. And what we're seeing right now in the game of golf and beyond is fracturing. We're seeing that the picture that we were presented with for all these years is not necessarily reality, even though reality we're finding in today's society is very much subject to how you choose to interpret it. So things are changing, and if I have a fear for the game of golf, it's that the game of golf needs to have very forward-thinking people to realize that trying to put together a structure that cements the way that it's always been is probably going to be a structure that can get washed away.